Good morning, Dan and Amy. And I got to go back to this rather stunning event in the Democrat Senate primary in Tennessee. Again, this is the seat that Lamar Alexander holds now. He's retiring. The Trump-backed, establishment-backed Republican, Haggerty, former Trump ambassador to Japan, he won the Republican
Yeah.
primary.
But then on the Democratic side, oh boy.
A woman named Marquita Bradshaw won a five-way contest with, I think of last reporting, about 36% of the vote. She raised something like $8,000 in the first quarter of the year. It doesn't appear that she even filed a second quarter fundraising report with the FEC. She is black. She's a black woman. She dominated in western Tennessee, including Shelby County, where Memphis is located, per the returns.
Yeah, she's a Memphis environmentalist, single mom.
And she defeated uh, uh, the preferred candidate of the Democrat Senatorial Campaign Committee, who's an Army veteran and an attorney, and had a massive cash advantage over all of his opponents. This comes on the heels of William Clay losing his congressional seat in Missouri in a primary earlier in the week after 20 years as an incumbent. Elliot Engel losing his primary in New York State to a young African American activist. A Democrat socialist taking out Bill Lipinski on the southwest side of the city. So you got newly minted socialist Spice Girls and boys coming to Congress. Well, Marquita Bradshaw is probably not going to make it in Tennessee, but what does that say about where the Democrat Party is? We were talking about it with Freddie Gray last hour. Is this the Democrat Socialist version of a Tea Party that Republicans had in 2010, 10 years later, except it's not a Tea Party, it's a Marx Party? For more on this, we're pleased to be joined by Salena Zito. She's a Washington Examiner reporter, New York Post columnist, CNN contributor, and author of The Great Revolt, Inside the Populist Coalition, Reshaping American Politics. And that is across the political spectrum, that populist coalition reshaping American politics. And I think we're starting to see an expression of it, or continuing to see at an increased pace, an expression of it on the Democrat side, aren't we, Salena?
Yes, absolutely. I'm really glad that you pointed this out, because sometimes these kinds of races go under the radar of the national news, but they're incredibly important because they show how the parties are shifting. People ignored when this happened, when the Republicans did it up until 2016, and then all of a sudden they're like, whoa, wait, Donald Trump won? How did that happen?
Right.
And so you see the same thing. I've been chronicling this for a while with the Democrats, and you even saw it in my home state of Pennsylvania. And while they didn't place candidates at a high level, congressional seats and Senate seats, what they did do, and I think this is actually very smart if you're trying to change the party from the bottom up, is they ran races in state House and state Senate seats, and the furthest left of the party won a healthy number of races in both Philadelphia and Pittsburgh. And while people might think, oh, why should I pay attention to that? That's only a state, House or state Senate seat. Well, that's where important policy is crafted and traditionally then taken up by federal, by the feds, so by a member of Congress or in the Senate, and makes its way up to law. So watching these sort of moderate, and some of them even, quite liberal Democrats lose in primaries to these left to far left, some aligning with the Socialist Party, is how movements begin. And I think that ignoring them is their folly on the national level.
How do these results, do you think, over the last couple of years, the ascendancy of the squad combined with what's happened over the last couple months even, how do they influence Joe Biden's vice presidential candidate selection?
Well, because they're very reluctant to show their hand, it's very difficult to understand. Meaning the Biden team, it's very difficult to sort of calculate or speculate on that decision making. Everything they are showing us right now is playing it safe. So I suspect that they're going to continue that with their vice presidential choice. And that could potentially be a problem, and it could potentially be an electoral problem for Biden if they play it safe. If they don't go with where the direction of their party is going, they could continue the enthusiasm gap that Biden already faces among his base. If you look at Pennsylvania's primary results, Biden that happened June 2nd, while Biden won, he didn't win by 70%, he didn't win by 90%. Both Bernie Sanders and Tulsi Gabbard, who was still on the ballot, took healthy chunks away from him in the primary results. People might dismiss that, but to me, that sends a red flag to me that there are people that either are not enthusiastic and will not vote for him, and or because we're a closed primary state, are casting a vote against him because in the end they'll vote for Trump in the general.
Well, Salena, who do you think Biden will pick as his running mate?
I have no idea. Everyone sort of is, I think that the top two contenders right now are Harris and Rice, the senator from California and the former national security. I forget what her
advisor
position was.
Yeah, NSA. Yeah,
advisor in the Obama administration. Both of them present problems for the Biden camp because both of them are seen as establishment figures within the party, running beside an establishment figure. Now, if you're being thoughtful about trying to attract moderates to the party for November, the Biden camp is being smart. But if you're thinking ahead, you're thinking for the future, you're banking on the next generation, you're probably picking two wrong people.
With respect to Susan Rice, this is really interesting that she's even in the conversation. And I want to get your reaction to this because you travel around and you talk to actual three-dimensional human beings that live outside the Beltway, and so you get a better handle on this. The case that President Trump and Republicans and talk radio people like me are making that, this investigation of the Russian collusion investigation, what the FBI and the intelligence agencies and the Obama administration, the Department of Justice did, punctuated again this week by Sally Yates' testimony. This is problematic, not just because it's President Trump and we want him to get reelected. It's problematic because of the precedent that it's set that undermines the peaceful transfer of power, that undermines the legitimacy of agencies that have a lot of power and in whom we otherwise place a lot of trust, that could be, foundational institutions for the rule of law as well as for our national security that are now being called into question by significant percentage of the population. That's why it's important. And that's the case I think you make to the American people, but maybe it doesn't have any resonance. I have to think that the Democrats don't think that argument has any resonance. Otherwise, Susan Rice could not be in the conversation about being their presidential candidate's running mate. It just is insane to me, particularly against the backdrop of Paul Sperry over at Real Clear Investigations, his piece out yesterday, that, the people that are close to Durham and people that he knows, and he's a good investigative journalist too, suggests that, sort of as Barr intimated in interviews over the last several weeks, that the Durham investigation will be complete, and there will be a presentation of charges against whoever's going to be charged before Labor Day. How do you nominate Susan Rice if those things are of a concern to an important percentage of the American electorate?
Well, because I think they don't take this seriously, and they don't take the thoughtfulness of the American voter. This doesn't mean it would flip a person who doesn't like Trump to vote for him, but it certainly could mean that they're going to sit this out because they're going to say, look, this is the same old corruption that I've been against for 20 years, whatever, maybe as a middle-aged voter, and why I can't put my vote behind this. This is a vote for continuing corruption, and so I think that's the challenge that they're not considering. I think they think the American public is stupid, and I think that is a risk they're willing to take. They have calculated for whatever reason, if they decide to choose Rice, that that they can overcome that narrative with a different narrative. We're not privy to what they're going to run on, but you have to speculate that they have some reason for thinking they can get away with that.
And they also think they're going to overcome with their narrative the concerns that parents around the country have about their kids not being in school, the concern that adults around the country have about their jobs, their businesses. They can overcome their promotion of lockdown policy on the basis of safety and fear-mongering, as opposed to they can overcome those very real quality of life, sustainability of life concerns that families have with their public health narrative is my point.
Yeah, I don't think that that a lot of the people that are making these decisions have calculated the mental health stress that continual lockdowns will have on families or individuals or multi-generations of families. Not kids not going to school. That can have not just a mental health, but also an educational impact on them. Because, we are social beings. We love, even when we get annoyed with people, we like to interact. And taking things away like school sports, right? Think about that. Not only do our children learn how to lose, and they learn how to sit on a bench and earn their way up. These are more, I would argue, important characteristics than winning. But they also learn how to work together for a common goal with a team, let alone the endorphins that they create, which is incredibly great for their mental health and relieving stress and depression. All those things are taken away from children. And, at some point, people are going to say, okay, there's risk, but we can't just shut our lives down for years. And I think that we may get to that point, and that may cross the ideological spectrum in a way that I don't think people understand yet.
She is Salena Zito, Washington Examiner reporter, New York Post columnist, CNN contributor, and author of the must-read book, especially now. This is a good read, thinking about November 3rd. The Great Revolt, Inside the Populist Coalition, Reshaping American Politics. Salena, thanks again for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me. People can check my stuff out at SalenaZito.com. It's all there.
Great. Thank you, Salena. And she joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Before you see it on TV, share it on Facebook, or read about it in the paper. Hear it here first. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Attention maintenance coordinators and chief engineers. Welding is a craft requiring highly skilled personnel and specialized equipment. So who do you call when you need welding? Vans Industrial can perform all types of welding at your site or in their shop.
Hi, I'm Dave Van Camp, president of Vans Industrial. As a metal fabricator and installer, welding is a huge part of our business. At Vans, we have trained AWS certified welders, skilled in welding all types of alloys. We can weld carbon steel, stainless steel, brass, and aluminum with a variety of techniques, including MIG, TIG, and stick. And we have equipment to reach the farthest parts or the tightest areas of your facility.
Vans uses only the best and safest union-trained mechanics, insured at the highest level to perform the job